Dio, no matter what happens, live nobly and with pride. If you do that, you'll surely be able to go to heaven. I wonder if my mother, who always used to tell me that, did indeed to go heaven in the end, although she lived at the bottom rung of society. She lived with a pride that she never lost over the whole course of her life. But while that may be true, especially being so, no, rather because she was so. I do not think she obtained a ticket to heaven. I don't think so. She was noble, proud, as well as pure, righteous, and beautiful, and actually even good is like. But at the same time, she was a hopelessly foolish woman. I hated that hopeless foolishness. Take this, for example, while we were so impoverished, we would be worried about eating meals that day, while both she and I, her son, were in an environment where we suffer from having empty stomachs. She shared the purchase sum of money she had worked to earn with hungry children in the neighborhood. And not just with children, with elderly people or sometimes animals. She gave charity and blessings to such weaklings, like it was her duty. What's the word kindness? She would scatter that sort of thing freely to those around her. What words that if not foolish? One can't help but hate it. Her way of life, where she would put herself as well as her family, second was certainly noble and proud, but in the bottom rung town, there was no one to assess that nobility and pride, depending on the place, like where the Zosta family lived, that sort of idyllic country town, such character would be reasonably recognized. But in that town, that was worse than a ditch. To be honest, she was a laughing stock. The children who took her charities, as well as the elderly people, all laughed at mother. They roared at the laughter like they were seeing a thoroughly entertaining, hilarious joke being played. And when I heard that laughter, I didn't really have much animosity to it. They were absolutely right, I thought. Enough so that I wanted to laugh right along with them. My anger towards my mother took precedence, so I of course didn't do so. But that's the degree that I feel so. My mother was foolish, helplessly foolish. Be that as it may, as you might expect, being the son of the mother who was being made fun of, I was sometimes looked down on. And I couldn't just let the people that were laughing at my mother get away with it. But when I did that, my mother scolded me. Rather than the ones that were laughing at her, she would scold me that got angry. You mustn't do that, Dio. You must not live relying on violence like that. If you do such things, you will not go to heaven. Thinking back, it was her favorite phrase. Words themselves have concrete meanings. Maybe they were something like incarnation. Her simply saying those things left an impression on me. She need only to say the word heaven, and it feels like she might be saved. I have to think that because otherwise that woman's feelings were completely incomprehensible to me. No, even if I did think that, understandably, she was undoubtedly impossible to understand. But thinking back on it now, I feel that it's probably brought a reasonable amount of light into her life, in which she was constantly laughed at. But anyhow, my mother, took every opportunity to say that to me as a young child. If you do this, you can go to heaven. If you do that, you can go to heaven. Heaven, heaven, heaven. And every time it irritated me. My childhood mind learned severe irritation. I thought of them as irrational words. I couldn't forgive my mother. That's why whenever I would see my drunken father commit violence against my mother, it actually made me feel relief. Serve you right, I thought. Thinking about it now, it seemed rather foolish, but as a young child, I liked my father more than my mother. I felt my love like insignificant, hopeless father was far better than my noble, proud mother. If my mother was a giver or perhaps a donor, then I think I could say my father was a taker. Thinking back on my connection with Joestar family, a faded connection spanning over 100 years, his habit of stealing may have been impetuous. What he took from Joestar was the courts. I never once saw him work. I never saw him work or earn anything for himself. Through random gambling, squatted like extortion, he took cash and food from people in town she never earned, she only took. She was always doing that. The way she lived his life until his death was exactly opposite my mother's. And in that town, the one who was right was my father. My father's way of living was honest and correct. At the very least, I thought that the way my father lived so uninhibited and courteously was cool. Didn't say I looked up to him, but I respected him. It's really that she foolish look back on it now, but I was not in my proper senses. But I thought of the way she lived that very skillful. She was always taking from the weak and then respond to necessity, or even not in response to necessity. He would beat other people for me, a still innocent child. One could not be stronger. I watched him. He was strong, stylish, and cool. That's the broken down slum of a town. Knowing that my father was such a person who gave life's greatest and my life's only pride. But my mom repudiated that. She downright criticized. Dear, stop. Let's go. Give back all the money you stole. You mustn't do these things. If you do things like this, you won't be able to go to heaven. Whenever she said that, she got hit. A foolish woman got foolishly beaten. When she collapsed, he would violently kick her and throw liquid bottles at her. I only found out about it later, but my little brother and little sister that could have been restored to that violence apparently is a cruel story. It's a cruel story, isn't it? It surely is. But among that daily violence, she would forthright to the end. In that life at the bottom rung of society, in the terrible environment, she thought about justice, ethics, and morals. She held dearly those things that served no purpose, like they were treasures. I wish she would have just shut up. At least, I wish she had overlooked my father's actions, but she would have done that. She would at least have escaped his violence. No, when I think my father in his drunken phrases, you probably couldn't escape completely no matter what you did. But when I was a child, in an attempt to do that, I would stay quiet and get away from him when he drank, and that would minimize the amount of damage I received. A child could figure it out that, but she never did it. Quite the opposite. When my father was drunk heavily and got drunk off his ass, she remonstrated him. You must drink so much liquor and the like. She would say obvious things like that. She would get hit and say obvious things. What exactly was going to come from saying things like that? If you've thought about it, it should have been easy to figure out. Seeing her try to talk to my father, despite the fact that she did nothing to defend herself from being beaten, couldn't be expressed as anything but humor. It's strange. I cannot help but question it. Even if she couldn't escape the scorn, she should at least have been able to escape the violence. So why didn't she? It is as I thought she was simply foolish because she wasn't smart. Was my mother really a hopeless idiot? That is wrong. Now that 100 years have passed, I know that is wrong. That I know the so-called outside world and the naked world, the is true that my mother always had intelligence and education, even while in poverty, where I could not go to school often, the one that taught me various things in place of her teacher was none other than her. It is because I had that basic education that I was able to live with such determination later. I never once thanked my mother for that while she was alive, though I didn't think that such an education could serve any purpose. But if it's worth for that, I seriously doubt I could have lived that refined style. I never cared about my mother's bloodline, but when I did investigate, I found that women may have actually come from the upper echelons of society. If I'm allowed to say something a bit prejudiced, her refinement and dignity, and that plenty of hers were at the very least not born out of poverty. They must have been things born out of life of luxury. But why would such a woman marry that father, and why she fit into this miserable town? I cannot call anything but mysteries. Speaking of which, my father once told me something while drunk, something about him eloping with my mother, and how's that for love and romance, and some worthless drive like that. I dismiss it as drunken nonsense, but I don't know whether or not it was actually really true. I ignored it. It seemed like an incredibly hard story to swallow, but although I can't confirm it as true, it may not have been nonsense either. Perhaps that father of mine said something truthful, though there's no way to find out. Dear, don't blame your father. Your father is really a kind person. He just shouldn't drink. If he only quit drinking, I'm sure your father would work diligently. Now it was nonsense, I thought. My mother said something to me with a serious look on her face. It took all I had not to cry out against that. I wanted to ask how she could possibly be so foolish. He's really a kind person. If only he stopped drinking. How or where could you look, or in what the way you try to explain it in order to think in such a way? All I could think was that my mother has lost her mind of being beaten too much. If one assumed that, one could even say that they were actually a very well-matched couple. But really, no matter how you thought about it, they were an incredibly mismatched couple. Despite living as a wife of that low-life father, my mother, who make it a principle to do good, who aims to go to heaven, must have been tantamount to torture. Or perhaps for her, that was the most charitable thing you could do. Perhaps she thought that getting close to that father of mine to remain married to him for life was a mission given to her by God, something along those lines. It's an audacious hypothesis I have no basis for, but unless I think it was something like that, I really can understand it. Her life was far too incomprehensible. She was a laughing stock of the town, but she still tried to have him. She was beaten bloody by him, but she still tried to serve that father of mine. Every day she worked to the brink of collapse. And seeing as one day she really did collapse and passed away, I really can't understand her. In the end, I wonder if she did get to heaven. I don't think she did. Surely, she couldn't go anywhere. She had nowhere to arrive at and nowhere to go back to.